Okay.
Hey there, friends. Welcome back to the Rip It Off podcast. And today I have my friend, Michelle McCoy. So it is a Michelle party. Welcome, Michelle of Treasured Wellness. I'm so excited that you're here today.
I'm
Say
so
hi.
happy to be here. How are you? It is so great. I love the title, Rip It Off, and we are going to do some ripping off today.
We absolutely are. I am doing great. The sun is finally out. You know, I live in Southern California, which is almost always sunny, but the last 3 days it's had the audacity to be like gray and weird. So
Yeah,
my
that's not
life is
cool.
good again. We've got the sun out.
I know I could not live anywhere other than the South for sure. Like, I can't live up north again. Like, I'm a New York transplant. I can't do it.
No,
Too gray.
yeah, no. But my cousin lives in Washington and she had like these beautiful
Yeah.
sunny days recently. I'm like, what the heck? Anyways, we
Yeah.
didn't come together to talk about weather.
Weather.
But before we get into all the ripping and doing all the things, would you just introduce yourself a little bit? Tell everybody who you are, what you do, all the good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm Michelle. I'm a wife, mom, 2 adults. I can't believe it. And they're married, no grandkids yet. I just get 4-legged granddogs. And yeah, it's just amazing. My husband and I are loving the emptiness season. We are fully immersed. I am a holistic functional health coach. I work with women who are struggling in the midlife season with fatigue and brain fog and very low energy and a lot of exhaustion. So, yeah. And I live in North Carolina.
I love it. There's so many things I want to touch on here. I just laugh when I think brain fog. I'm like, doesn't everybody have that? Like when it was foggy here, I'm like, no, that's my brain half the time. Like there's just this, like, literally, I met a friend for coffee this morning and she says something and I was like, I've got a story. And I start to tell her and I was like, never mind. I dared to breathe in the middle of that conversation and I had no clue. It finally came back, but I was
It
like,
happens.
it's a legit thing.
It really is. Nobody gets it until they're living it. And then they're like, oh, I get it.
Hey, you're like,
Yeah.
that's what they were talking about. And then
Right.
you're like, oh my gosh, I made fun of her. And now it's me.
And you're thinking, I hope you feel bad because you made fun of me. No, but it does. It happens to everybody. And, we can call it whatever, but it doesn't have to be our lot in life. That is for sure. We can recover from brain fog.
Absolutely. Well, hallelujah and amen. And I'm so glad that you are doing what you're doing. And I know that you are such a blessing to the women and men. You do work with some men, correct?
I do. It's really awesome because like their wives start working with me and then they're like texting me on the side, can my husband do this? And I'm like, yeah, but then they get mad because their husbands do amazing, like with weight loss.
Of course they
And
do.
yeah, of course. And so, yeah, but it's so great because when they're supporting each other, they're eating the same foods, they're walking together after dinner every night, like they've got the same shared goals and intentions. It makes it so much easier all the way around.
I love that. Well, the reality is what you and I do are really not that different. You're just hitting it from a gut, from the health and wellness end of it. And I'm hopefully trying to come from the heart of really like get into your heart and what's going on here. So
Right.
on that note, what are some of the things that we could hit like a million, but what is one lie that you would love to rip off when it comes to this area that women are in? So the women that you mainly talk to are like myself in their
Right.
late 40s, early 50s. They've hit this blessed menopause, which for months and years, they're like, what in the world is happening to me? And she
Right.
doesn't understand all of these things. So what is a lie around that time of her life and sex and marriage and intimacy that you are seeing that you're like, okay, we got to rip this one off. We got to not having it.
Well, first off, exhaustion isn't normal. It is not normal. It is not your lot in life. No matter what your doctor tells you, you can take that with a grain of salt and move on and fire him or her and just move on. But exhaustion isn't normal. There are times in our life, seasons of exhaustion, but that constant exhaustion is not normal. And the enemy loves to whisper lies to women in this season specifically that this is how it is. This is your age. It's your hormones. And when we're talking about intimacy, he whispers, sex will never be the same again, which let's be real, that can bring on a whole host of emotional stuff, right? Fears like, am I still attractive to my husband? Should I start to worry about our marriage since we aren't having
Mhm.
sex as much as we did in our 20s? Or, should I start to worry about our marriage? Like the emotional connection, like even like those genuine concerns that you're having day in and day out because you're just not feeling it, right? But the truth is, your marriage is going through a seasonal change. Like it's just going through a seasonal change right now. Just like we have seasonal changes when you have a baby, when you have teenagers, when you have empty nest, like you're going through seasonal changes in your marriage and it's not over. It is not the end. You are not going to just become roommates and your exhaustion isn't normal.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And all the women are like waking up from their nap, like, okay, wait, this is not normal. I think at one point I had said to you, you mean waking up in the morning and thinking about when can I take a nap? Like, that's not a normal thing.
No, it's not, but it was me too. So, I mean, again, a season of fatigue, and we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think what ends up happening is we hear other women who are going through the same thing and we hear, "Oh, okay, well she's always tired too." Okay, or
Right.
she's feeling this way too. Okay, okay. Well, I guess that's just how it is.
Yep.
And we
This
buy
is how it's
into
going
it.
to be. We do. We buy into the lie. We buy into the lie. And honestly, traditional, conventional medicine does not help. It doesn't help because it's continuing to be like, "Oh, it's just your age." I mean, I literally was patted on the hand at an appointment. And I'm like, what? No, like, I'm not going to accept that lie. Like, that's not, I'm like way too young. I think it was like 37 at that time or something. I'm like, no.
Gosh.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, and I think what you and I have talked about too is we have these doctors that are well-meaning. I really do think most of them want to do what is best. They're just working on a flawed premise and they
yes,
look at factors. Maybe it's our hormones because I've had my hormones done so many times and every single time they come out normal. And hallelujah. Like I'm not on a mission for, yes, quote unquote, normal. I'm not on a mission to find something and be like, see, this is it. But also at the same
right.
time, you're sitting there going, but this doesn't make sense. I get it.
Yeah,
Maybe this is a woman listening who her kids are young and she's doing all this stuff. It makes sense. You're tired. You're chasing after all of these kids. Maybe your kids are teenagers. Friend, it's exhausting raising teenagers. They already know everything. So
of
what good
course.
are you? Like you just take them to and from. Haha, that's tongue in cheek, friend. They do not know
Right,
everything. But it's
right.
exhausting because you're dealing with all of these things. Or maybe they're older and you feel like, oh, well, now I have more time. I shouldn't be exhausted. We're building on this whole premise of this should logic that
Yeah.
is ridiculous. We should feel normal. We should, and we're not. And you're just like, I don't understand this. And what I love about what you do is you talk to these high functioning women. Describe what you mean by high functioning, because I think some people think, I don't know, like, what is that? What do you mean by that term?
You're a go getter. You're getting things done. You are the Energizer Bunny. No matter how bad you feel, you're pushing through, you're getting things done. You have high expectations of yourself, not so much other people, but yourself. And you just keep going. You just keep going. And that leads into high functioning fatigue. And that is, I guess my definition of high functioning fatigue is like that underlying tiredness, that heavy feeling of exhaustion that you just can't shake no matter how much you rest, no matter how much you sleep in every Saturday. But it's also coupled with that mental fog we were talking about, that brain fog that makes even simple decisions feel really overwhelming. You might look put together on the outside, right? But on the inside, you're struggling to keep up. You are feeling like you're barely holding it together and you're wondering why you're so exhausted all the time. And I like to say you're smiling on the outside and slowly dying on the inside. because that was how I felt.
Laugh because it's so real. You're just like, okay, like I gotta go. Because you're also viewing yourself at a level that maybe you could maintain for a while. Like you really like it
Yeah.
was. So now that's your barometer. Like I could do this.
Right.
It was probably 10 or 15 years ago. You were younger, you
Yeah.
had more energy, you had more,
Yeah.
and so you're trying to compete at this level and you're like, it's actually just not realistic. So instead of changing factors around you, you just keep running. I don't see the problem in that, Michelle. I don't know why there's a problem.
I know. I don't know why there is either until God made me lay down. Like he literally forced me down. And that's when I started realizing, oh, there's a term for this. High functioning fatigue. That's so me. And you know what? It's my clients too.
Well, I love that because we walk around for so long just thinking this is just my lot in life. This is how it goes.
Yeah.
This is, and yet we see it spill out. And what you and I have talked about at different times is I think what I have found is the women that you and I talk to, we look at our health and then sex and intimacy. And they're
Mhm.
different things. And,
Mm.
they're not really, I'm like, I can kind of see a relationship, but not really. And the reality is they could not be more related if you tried. Like they are one and the same. And how you treat your body is going to have an effect on your marriage, on your sex, and your intimacy within your marriage. And what have you seen that's happening with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. See, we are all connected, right? So I take that holistic with a WHOLE, holistic approach. So we're looking at the body, of course, but we're also looking at the mind and the spirit. Like we're looking at it all because you cannot compartmentalize it. I mean, you just can't. So when we're talking about how is that affecting intimacy with my spouse, there are so many factors going in there because there are like it's a slow fade, right? This does not happen quickly. This is not something where you all of a sudden you wake up one day and you've got I'm going to get into some symptoms, so I'm just going to throw something out there. You've got like vaginal dryness and you've got no desire to, have sex with your husband. You don't even want to hug him because you know it's going to lead to something else. Like you don't wake up that way just overnight feeling that way. The thing is, it's a slow fade. Women are so depleted and so drained at the end of their busy workday that they struggle to find joy and desire that they once had, even though they love their husband so deeply. I mean, they truly do. I mean, it's almost like, when the kids are little and you're pouring all your energies into the littles because, you have to, like, they can't care for themselves. And like your relationship kind of gets pushed on the back burner a little bit, unless you're fortunate to have like family that will always watch the kids and you can have date nights and you're doing things to nurture your marriage. It's the same thing in midlife. It's the same thing when those kids are driving. And so they're out of the house until curfew. It's the same thing. You have to nurture that, but you have to nurture yourself too, so that you then have that desire to keep pouring in. Because if you are pouring, you can't pour out what you don't have.
Yeah.
And if your bucket is dry because you're not giving yourself care, you're not fueling your body properly, either, mentally, spiritually, physically, it's really hard to give that out to your husband because you've probably given at the office. Like you've given all you got during your workday. And if you are struggling with exhaustion, like you're finding it's so hard to have energy to do little projects that you used to enjoy, going for a walk with hubby after dinner. Like it just feels like it's a mountain that you're climbing because everything is so much. It just feels so heavy. It's like, I remember when I was in the worst of my second fatigue crisis, I felt like I was walking through quicksand. I was so exhausted. I just like, my limbs felt heavy, like everything was heavy. So I believe like in your heart, you may want to pour into your hubby, right? My ladies that come to me, like they want to pour into their spouse, but they literally feel like it might send them over the edge and not in a good way. Like
Yeah. Right.
there's this war going on inside of them, right? Like I hear this a lot. Your husband reaches to pull you
Mhm.
close and you freeze. Like you literally, it's like and he senses that. Like he feels it.
Totally.
Absolutely. And so, intellectually it's been a while. You're not stupid. You're counting, you're tracking, it's been a while, but you're like, I just can't go there. I just can't. Like,
Yeah.
and there's so many physical reasons that affect that, right? You don't feel good. Your stomach hurts. You're bloated again. Your head hurts. You're just exhausted. And at the end of the day, you just don't want one more person touching you. You don't want one more person needing something from you.
Yeah.
And you certainly don't want to get naked and be touched. Like you don't feel good. So when we don't put our focus on ourselves for a season, it's not selfish. That's a whole other conversation. Self-care is not selfish. Self-care is not just a mani-pedi and a bubble bath either. Self-care is those daily acts of intentional, I'm going to care for myself. I'm going to fill my bucket. So, I mean, he sees it. He feels it.
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering if, and I would love to hear what you think about this as you're talking through all this. So she's dealing with getting older. She's dealing with her body changing. She is also a woman like myself that was raised in this purity culture era of we don't talk about sex. So now she's reached this age where things just feel off, but she's never been, she doesn't even know how to have a conversation about how she feels, like how her body feels, like bloating, all that kind of stuff. She's lived with it for so long. Now there's this, she doesn't really understand the dryness. She doesn't really understand. And in her mind, I'll say my mind, I know these things. Like, can she actually verbalize anything about sex, or does that make her like, does she even love Jesus if she talks about her desires and her wants and that things are off? Like, I would imagine that that is also part of the problem is she doesn't even know how to verbalize what's going on sexually in her body.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Because it's not talked about from the pulpit. It's not talked about in Sunday school. It's not talked about in Bible study. And if it is, it's you should, there's that should again, be having sex once a week. You should, minimum, right? So then if you've got some physical stuff going on right there, oh, I've already failed. I'm failing, as a daughter of the king. I'm failing as a wife. Like, I'm failing. So it is very, very difficult to have that conversation with your husband, especially, right? And it's so interesting to me because we are taking the most intimate of all acts, and yet we can't verbally explain how we feel. But I promise it gets better. You just have to start. You just have to rip the Band-Aid off, Michelle, and you just have to have that conversation. You just have to start with what feels comfortable, and then you can build on that. When you're avoiding your husband when you're changing clothes, right? When you're avoiding like him pulling you in for a hug, or you get to bed before he does, and you're just like, you're feigning you're half asleep. I mean, we all know the things, right? You're walking around.
Michelle, I don't know what you're talking about. I feel like you're singling me out. What is going on here?
Takes one to know one. How do you think I know what I'm saying? Yes. Been there, done that. I'm walking around. This was me walking around talking about how bloated I was well in advance of bedtime. In advance.
Right? Like, did you get the message? Did you see the Post-it notes I put everywhere, honey?
Bloated, nothing happening tonight, or how stressed you are, how tired you are. I mean, fill in your blank. What is it
crazy
you're saying?
because, okay, bloated, that's one thing. You're probably making it up a little bit. You're leaning into it a little bit too much. But the stress, okay, can we talk about something that's going to relieve a little stress here?
Right. Exactly. And so, yeah. So I guess I want you to walk away with hope that there is, you might have this might be your situation, but it doesn't have to stay there. You don't have to stay in that situation. It does take, courage to rip the Band-Aid off and say, I remember the first time I started verbalizing how it was feeling. It was like a no eye contact kind of thing. It was like, we're walking and I'm like, okay, I just got to tell you this. I'm just going to get this out.
Which actually is brilliant. I always say, go for a walk. You can have
Always.
some of the best conversations because you're not
Yes.
face to face. You're
Yep.
outside. You're side by, you're shoulder to shoulder. You
Yep.
can fumble over these words. You can get really interested in the whatever flower is there. Like,
Yes.
you can do that. And also, here's the thing. If you've been married for even a year, you've likely known your husband for a little bit longer than that. He loves you. I am
Right.
convinced. Our husbands are not perfect, but I'm willing to bet that most of them, they want what's best for not just themselves, but for us too. They want to hear. And if you even fumble over your words, if the word sex is in there, they're like, I'm all ears. What? What is
Right.
that you were saying? Like,
Right.
I'll help you figure this out. Sure.
Right.
We can have
Right.
a hands-on, role play fun. It'll be great. We'll figure it out.
So true about what you said too is they are more than likely feeling like it's them. If we don't verbalize to them, we're hurting them. At the end of the day, we are hurting them. We are uh make potentially causing them to feel emotions that we don't even intend for them to feel. But if we just, it's like almost like confession, right? Like if we just confess and say, hey, like, I just gotta let you know I'm going through some stuff, right? Like my husband knows if I say, all right, the hormones, and he's like, okay, all right, yeah,
Say no more. I'll see you next week.
gotcha. But what's really funny is too, is you can laugh about it because then when they're having an off week, you're like, oh yeah, well, I was ready. And where were you? But that takes time and that takes ripping the first initial band-aid off because he does love you and he wants what's best for you personally, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, but also you as a couple because you are one. You are one. And so I think we do our husbands a disservice when we withhold how we're really feeling. And, that can be another thing that could be based off of trauma, church hurt, whatever, that takes time for us to, get past. But I really think communication it's huge. I mean, I don't even know what is the Christian divorce rate right now. I mean, it's
It's
like,
the
is
same
it
as the world.
60?
I think it's
It's
like
the
50,
same as
60%. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and it should not be. And I really believe communication, 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 even though it feels hard, ugly, snot nose crying. I mean, your husband does not want you crying. Like he doesn't want to see that. Like, cause he loves you. He has a heart for you and he wants to fix it.
Completely.
So
Yes.
yeah,
But better to like try and
yeah,
fumble. And I don't know, there's
yeah,
many times where I'm like, it makes a whole lot of sense here in my head, but I don't know, in this like space, like getting it out, I'm really struggling, but
yeah,
like I'm trying, but you also might need help. You might need a
yeah.
biblical counselor. You might need to
Right,
start meeting with somebody who can help, take the garbly goop that's in there and
right.
process that out and give you those prompts. And I mean, some of the best times we've had is when we have met with a marriage counselor and really just had that third party, because the reality is you and your husband, there's emotions are high. You want what's
Mm-hmm.
best for both of you,
Mm-hmm.
but you're also like, okay, I don't want to say anything that's going to like, I don't want it to come out wrong. I don't want it to be, so you're straddling this battle here or this potential minefield, and you want what's best but you just don't know how to get it out. So sometimes you need that. Prayer is huge. When we talk about communication, I
Always.
always think, have you communicated with the Lord first? Like, have
Yeah.
you talked to him? Have you asked him to help you with this?
Yeah, well, and you're absolutely right, and it's completely okay to say, "Look, my brain is a squirrel's nest right now, so I'm gonna do the best that I can, but here's my disclaimer. It might not come out the way I'm trying to get it to come out. So there's my disclaimer."
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
but as far as prayer, I'm a firm believer in praying every night with your husband, every day, every morning, whatever. And just praying together. We didn't always used to do this. I mean, we didn't. So, it's been, I don't know, almost 9 years now that we've been doing that. And we've been married. It'll be 33 years next month. I know, right?
Wow. Which I think is a good point what you say. So there's going to be some woman that's listening who has little toddlers around and she's like, oh my gosh, we don't pray every night together. I've got to do that. There are
Oh my
times
gosh. Yeah.
in our life. You know, I always tell these new mamas, like, you don't need to be waking up at 5 in the morning to spend time with the Lord, because more than likely you got to bed at 3. So he wants you to
Yeah.
sleep. Like, it's okay. There's a
Yeah.
time in your life where all of these things, you're going to be able to do these, maybe not all at the same time, but there is
Hmm.
going to be that time. And if you're in that stage of life where you're like, you know what, actually, we go to bed at the same time, we're gonna take some time and actually pray. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. And to be honest, we were going through a fiery trial when we started that. We were like driven to our knees as a couple. So there's beauty in that too. You know, it wasn't about us, but it drew us closer together and it strengthened our marriage. And we just
I
kept
love
doing it. So, and it's not perfect, right? But
no.
you know, it's just, it's something that we have taken and built on, and we encourage our children to do that, and we encourage other newly married people to do that, and oldly married. That's not even a
Right.
word, but you know what I mean. Like,
Yes.
everybody should do it and just get started. Just, it's just another one of those things of trying, you know, like, I'm just going to start this, and we're going to let the Lord do what, because I mean, it honors him. So of course he's going to bless it.
Absolutely. Okay, let's get back to our high functioning woman here who is tired, and she's like, okay, I'm hearing all the things. Like, I need to, but she's like, I need to, da, 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 da.
Right. Yes.
Let's give her some
Yeah.
practical. How can she truly begin to renew herself physically, emotionally, spiritually, mentally without that guilt? Because we hear that rest,
Mm,
that word rest, and it is a 4-letter word. And God hears
right.
that and he's like, daughter, it's rest. Like, I want you to rest. So what words do you have for her?
Well, Hosea, I think it's Hosea 4:6, right? Says, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. God makes it very clear that he wants us to rest and rest in him. And Jesus modeled rest. So, you know, whatever the world is yelling at you about rest, whatever reason why you feel it's a 4-letter word in the negative, like, talk to the Lord about that, because he created your body to need rest. And rest is not just sleeping 8 hours. Rest is not just sleeping until 8 on Saturday. So the fatigue that you're feeling, the constant exhaustion and brain fog you're feeling, it is really stressing your nervous system. It is stressing your adrenals. It is putting a huge strain on you and leading you to potential burnout. So again, pulling back, talking to the Lord about this, shifting your mindset to more of that biblical mindset, right? Because it's like, okay, wait, yes, God designed my body. He designed my body to recover and repair on a cellular level. Sleep is helping me to restore and repair. Okay, so if my sleep isn't right, how can I help my sleep? And it's almost like, ask the Lord, what am I doing? Reveal to me what I am doing or not doing that is making my fatigue worse, or making, you know, whatever it is for you, worse. But there are some tangibles. You know, I always bring some tangibles, you know, bring in that holistic approach. So physically, okay, physically, you want to be sure you're eating enough. Women over 30, oh, really over 35, are not eating enough protein, period. They're just not. So you want to think of protein, fat, fiber. You want good hydration as well. So good nutrition, good hydration, clean filtered water. You want to move your body every single day. And I know you're moving all day long, right? Especially if you're home with the kiddos, you're working a job, all that, but doing something that's fun, I call it fun healthy movement, and that can simply be kicking the soccer ball with your kids, you know, or chasing after your grandkid on a bike or something. Like, that's fun, right? It doesn't have to be the treadmill. If you hate the gym, stop going. Save your money. Seriously, I am not
But
a gym
everyone
rat.
says I have to go to the gym, so I
You
guess
don't. You don't. You know, if everybody jumped off a cliff, would you? Our parents used to say. So, but no,
exactly.
you don't. You don't. But you know, move your body every day. Guess what? That's going to help you be more tired at night naturally, because you're tired, but your brain is wired. So we need to calm the brain down, and we need to get that restorative sleep. So you need to create a calming bedtime routine for yourself, which again, self care is all part of this little ritual.
Yeah.
And then, you know, again, just talking to your husband about how you're feeling. And if, I'm all about getting answers. I help my ladies get answers to what's going on. Why are they so fatigued? Why are they having chronic pain? What is going on? So get answers. Get proper lab testing. I would imagine most people have had at least one baseline lab panel by the time they hit this menopause season. It may not be enough. And just because you're in the normal range, quote unquote, right, does not mean they are normal. And so that's why I take a functional, holistic approach. My brain, my eyes are on that in the functional ranges, not the conventional. But if you know something's not right, keep digging. Don't take you're fine for an answer when you know you're not fine because something doesn't feel right. And oftentimes you just naturally have low libido, and that can be, it's not you, it's your hormones. Like low hormones, low libido, right? So there are some other things that we can get into, like painful sex. That's not going to make you have desire if sex is painful for you, right? I mean,
right. Every time you do it, you're like, I'm in pain. Every time your brain's like,
I know.
We're just not going to do that. So
it's exactly. And then it makes it worse because your body feels that. So, I mean, this is a real thing, but it also can be due to lack of hormones. So it's important to find out what's not right. And here's another thing, Michelle, that I don't think is being talked about: vaginal prolapse.
What is that? I've heard it before, but I don't know what that is.
Yeah. So vaginal prolapse. So your symptoms of prolapse can be like discomfort during sex, painful sex, feeling like there's a ball down there, a lot of pressure, increased constipation. So even if you've suffered from constipation previously, it gets worse because it's very, very difficult to eliminate. You get that full feeling in your lower tummy, and you need pelvic floor support. I mean, we need to find out why you're having, do you have prolapse? Why do you have prolapse? There are some great pelvic floor physical therapists now that I don't think there were 15, 20 years ago. So that's amazing. But you can be having pelvic floor pain, discomfort, weakness, which is affecting the bladder, which is again something that people aren't talking about. When you are feeling all of these physical things, the last thing you want to do is have more pressure down there.
Right.
So again, these are things to talk to your spouse about and say, it's not you. It's, I don't know what's happening. And then guaranteed they're going to be like, well, let's go find a doctor. Let's go find somebody. Let's go see, a pelvic. I don't know what you just said, but we'll go find a therapist.
What it is, but let's go find it. Let's go. Well, and the reality is God created this and it shouldn't be painful. Like that's
Correct.
not how it's supposed to be. So if you are experiencing any sort of pain, investigate that. Like figure that out. That's not how God designed it.
Correct. And it is common. I don't want to say the word normal. It's common to have, as we go through menopause, which could be a whole other conversation, we can have drier tissue, right? Our tissue is just drier. Things are just not as lubricated anymore down there, again, because of the hormone imbalance or lack of hormones. So it's important to find that out and not to say, well, I guess this is how it's going to be until we're 80 and then we just don't want it anymore. It's no way to live.
He's still going to want it. There's a way around it. So you just got to figure this out. But again, I go back to, what do we know of our God? He created sex. And it's to be beautiful. Yes, there is going to be a time in life where it's just not as, but you're not there, friend. Like, I'm pretty sure you're not 95 listening. And if you are and you're still loving it, like, that's awesome. And I think God intended it to be that way too. Like, you go, you. I do think if you're like the average woman who's somewhere between, 20 and 75, you probably should not be experiencing pain. And if you are, do some investigating.
Absolutely. And I'll just tell you without getting into the weeds, because I know of time, I went through 3 doctors before I got answers. So you just keep being your own best advocate for you. As a woman, you are the heartbeat of your home, whether you have kids at home or not. So advocate for yourself and then that's going to strengthen you to be able to verbalize some of these things too to your hubby, and just to really keep those lines of communication open. Because I promise you, empty nest can be phenomenal when you get to that point, right? Like if you're not there yet, there's so much hope. And I cried and grieved so much when our last left. I mean, months. I think it took me 6 months before I stopped crying. And then we had a boomerang kid come back a couple times from like cross country moves and then getting settled again. And so that helped. But it's been like solid 4 years, I think. It's been amazing. So, but it wouldn't have been, right, if some of these hard conversations weren't had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've got one that's getting ready to get married, and I know it will be hard when it gets there, but I also have two more. So then there's part of it that's like, whatever. I can see how the last one will be a little bit harder, like, oh my gosh. But yes, absolutely. And I keep thinking, I don't want to look across the table at my husband when they're all gone and be like, who are you?
Who
Like,
are you? Yes. No.
I
No.
remember you. There was this day, white dress, tux, like
Yeah.
something, but
It's so true. And it's such a precious time that God has given us. You know, it's like this for us anyway. We've got this window before the grandkids come. Because when the grandkids come, it's like all hands on deck. Everybody's going to
yeah,
know that I'm going to be a nana, like, so
yeah,
it's just one of those things. But we've got this window of time. And even though life is so busy and we may not be doing the things that we plan to do during this season of life, we plan to do a whole lot more traveling than we do, all of that stuff. Just keeping communication open, it's beautiful, honestly. And we're still modeling for our now adult children, hopefully for the good, about how a healthy marriage 33 years later can be.
I know you absolutely are modeling that. Well, I love that. And while we can talk forever and ever, I think that you ended it so beautifully with hope that whatever is going on right now, it does not have to be your story. Get help, whether it's working directly with you, Michelle, and I'm going to give you an opportunity in just a second to tell everyone where they can find you, or if it's pursuing the medical doctors or whoever you're working
Mhm.
with right now, like
Mhm.
really getting to the bottom of that, or just having those lines of communication open with your husband. That's just, there is hope. Absolutely. So I love that.
Absolutely. Oh, there's always hope in God's kingdom, always. And he wants more for you, and he calls you to rest and rest in him specifically. So change your mindset on what rest looks like for you. Do you need a nap? Take a nap, sure. But it's that daily intentional action step forward in leaning into the Lord. And then he's just going to open up the door for you to have those hard conversations and get the testing done that you need to do. You know, I help my clients with that too. And they're finally getting some answers that they haven't been able to get before. And a lot of things are making sense finally after years. And hey, I was there too. I had my own journey. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's always hope.
I love that. Well, tell everyone where they can find you, because I know that there's women that are like, oh my gosh, finally.
Well, the best way is the Treasured Wellness podcast. You can follow me there anywhere you listen to podcasts. But I do have a resource that would be really helpful if you are struggling with brain fog and fatigue. And you can also get that at treasuredwellness.com/blueprint. And that will give you 3 days of intentional actions that you can do every day to naturally just kind of regain energy. You're putting drips and drops into your bucket, and you're going to start feeling better. And then you can just continue to build on that.
Well, I love that. Thank you so much, Michelle, for coming on. I always love chatting with you.
I do too, Michelle. Thanks for having me.